Hello everyone, welcome to Red Snapper. My name's MJ and this is Snapple Pass, a series where we look at the brand new cards coming to Marvel Snap each week. And this week it's Starbrand. He's a 3/10. Ongoing, your opponent has +3 power at each other location. In this video, we're going to talk about the Spotlight Cash week that Starbrand is featured in. Synergies, counters, some deck ideas, and it's going to be awesome. You can use the chapters below to skip to the section that you want, or watch the whole thing if you're a true legend. Right, so let's talk about the Spotlight week that Starbrand is in first of all. He's alongside 2 Series 4 cards. So this isn't like the best value week, to be honest, guys. He's alongside Scar and Phastos. Scar recently got nerfed up to 7, so it makes him weaker in the Scar and Surtur traditional style Scar decks. Obviously, it's given him a home within Hela, though. Now, he's excellent in Hela. We just wonder how long Hela is going to survive the way that it is. Feels pretty likely that it's going to get a nerf. And Phastos, I mean, I personally like Phastos. I think you're also going to want to consider some future weeks. Next week, we're going to be talking about Firehair. I think Phastos could be pretty good with Firehair. So, yeah, keep your options open. That being said, it's not the strongest week overall. Comme ci, comme ça. Okay, let's talk about the mechanics of the card. The archetypes I think he's going to fit into are Sauron. This is his most obvious home by far. Ongoing, could he possibly fit within an ongoing shell as just an alternative to your normal kind of 3 cost ongoing like a Captain America or something? He fulfills a completely different type of role, but don't 100% count him out just because his ongoing ability is so bad. Control. I could be taking a trip down Coper's Cope Road with this one. Starbrand automatically drops you priority. So can you play that in a Serra control style deck? I think it's bloody possible. Clog, if you are giving them +3 power at 2 other locations, if you've clogged that location, you kind of don't care. You can easily win that location with the likes of demons and whatnot, so possibly an option there. Scar and Surtur decks, obviously he's going to fit well within that. And Silver Surfer, again, similar to the ongoing conversation here. Yes, Starbrand is basically a kind of negative card, kind of a bad card from a power output perspective if you don't remove the abilities. He's like a 3/4. But if you just abandon one location, and in the example of like a Silver Surfer deck, if one of those locations where you're giving them +3, you maybe drop Brood and Shaw, Sebastian Shaw, you can probably pretty easily win that location, even with giving them 3 extra power. So don't discount him fully from these other kinds of decks, even though most of our conversation is going to be around the Sauron stuff. I should say at this moment actually as well, guys, we're on the road to 400 subscribers, so please drop a subscribe. It'd be great to reach that goal, maybe even surpass it someday. Okay, so some other general thoughts of, sorry, the car outside beeping when I'm trying to film a fucking video. Oh god, someone's been hit by a car. No, kidding. Not that road traffic accidents are funny. I actually filmed a road safety video one time. You'll have to wait till the end of the video to watch that. Yeah, that's the first time I've done a wait until the end of the video thing, guys. So you better smash that subscribe. As we said, he automatically gives your opponent priority. So is this a new way to play Serra control? In that Serra location, well, in a Serra control deck, you're usually like dancing around priority. You're avoiding it. This way, it gives you a bit of extra leeway. You can play some extra cards like the Echo or something. You can actually hide the Echo underneath the 3 power now. It could be an interesting one. And yeah, sure, they can Shang-Chi it, but that's not the point of the Serra control deck anyway. It just gives you even more power in this potential location. I don't know, we'll look at it in the deck section. He is the cheapest 10 power card in the game. There's no jumping around this. Yeah, sure, you can Zabu into a Cull Obsidian, for example. But this guy is just auto a 3/10, which is very interesting. And listen, let's be completely clear. This is one of the most destructive ongoing abilities in the game. If you consider Red Skull, what, he's a 14 power, but actually he's given the opponent 8. So he's like, what? 6. He's like 6 power. Starbrand's only a 4 power, you know? And he's he's not doing anything in those other locations. So if you can't remove his abilities, like, he is bad. Let's be clear. Unless you're specifically playing into his strengths. And what are his strengths? AKA his pros. He's got giant raw stats, and there are lots of ways to negate the downside. So just consider the obvious ones: Zero, Enchantress, Sauron. But actually think about the less obvious ones like Venom. And I think there's definitely cards coming out in future. We saw some recently data mined cards that are probably going to work well with Starbrand too. Check out my leaks video that I recently did if you've not seen them. But yeah, think about Venom. Venom, eat up that 10 power. Also, like, can really easily do it. A turn 4 X23 Venom, scoop up that power. But get creative with how to negate the downside. And then when I was making these slides, I wrote down, I've been sat here for 10 minutes trying to figure out anything else. It's hard to think about the pros for this guy. He's kind of simple, okay? A lot of the Sauron cards are kind of simple. Massively high power. There's a downside. If you can negate the downside, then it's great. I'm not sure what else is good about this guy, apart from, you know, the new opportunity here of dropping priority. There's not all that many cards in the game that care about you having dropped priority, you know, apart from like tech cards where you need to ensure at the end of the game that you're going last because you're having the final say. But outside of that, I'm not sure. I mean, I did put he's rogue bait. I mean, if you put down like an Iron Man and then you play a Starbrand on top of Iron Man and they rogue it, and then they nick the wrong thing, that is going to feel like the best thing ever. I really want someone to clip that. Do that and clip it. Cons. The ongoing effect gives your opponent 6 power, making the equivalent power output of Starbrand without shenanigans 4. You know, like a 3-4. So you do need to remove the effect realistically, unless you're taking a trip with me down Copus Cope Road. Yeah, because if you can't negate the effect, it's horrifying. Let's talk about the locations though. There's actually loads to talk about. I didn't list quite all of them, but there's actually some surprisingly good ones. So Krakoa. This is extraordinary with Krakoa. We always want to get, well, I don't know about you actually, but I want to play on Krakoa as soon as possible, but it's that balance between playing in there quickly. There is a piece of hair just flapping around. It's a balance between playing on there as soon as possible, but also playing it late enough that you're able to play a high enough power card onto it that it is impactful on the card you draw. The more time that you have knowing which card got hit with your extra power, it means the more time and ability you have to work that into your game plan. So Starbrand on Krakoa I think is going to be absolutely nuts. Clintar is great because it's going to remove the effect for you if you haven't been able to. Same with Isle of Silence, same with Deep Space. And Bar with No Name is crazy because you play somewhere else and your opponent is winning Bar with No Name. So you're winning because, no, sorry, they've got higher power on it, so you're winning it, which is hilarious and cool. Bad locations. Altar of Death. This is a location that is pretty difficult to get into now, unless you are playing armor in your Sauron deck, which I like, sure. You might see in the deck ideas in a minute, even though I've got like 15 Sauron decks for you, none of them have armor in. Guys, Shang-Chi doesn't exist. Let him come for you. Bar Sinister is awful because you can give your opponents plus 12 power at all the other locations. You certainly don't want that. Death's Domain, again, it's a difficult location to get into and you can give your opponent power there. Luke's Bar, same reason. Negative Zone is an interesting one because, yes, on the one hand, you can play Starbrand into Negative Zone and it's a huge amount of power, especially for a low cost. So you're really easily able to get well ahead on that location. However, if Negative Zone is up, it's kind of removing your control a little bit because you can't really play Starbrand anywhere else. Because if you do play Starbrand somewhere else, it's sort of the equivalent of giving them 6 power there because they're getting that raw 3 power there, but without the -3. Onslaught Citadel, obviously doubling the negative downside to 6. And Sanctum Sanctorum. Cards can't play there. You're making it easier for your opponent to win there. So yeah, Starbrand's definitely going to be a little bit difficult. But guys, you're playing him in decks where you're removing his abilities. Zero, Enchantress, Sauron. So how much do you really need to worry about bad locations? Probably not that often, right? The counters to him is Cosmo. Cosmo is going to stop, if you play Cosmo on the Starbrand location, or if they do rather, it means that you can't do that later turn Enchantress. The slight upside is Cosmo is 3, Starbrand is 3. You may well get the Enchantress down before they play the Cosmo there. Shang-Chi, obviously could just kill it. Magneto could potentially be very disruptive to Starbrand, even more disruptive than just pulling a normal 3 or 4 costed card, because not only are you pulling that power away from wherever you thought was going to be there, or rather, sorry, I'm wording this poorly, your opponent is pulling your power away. We talk about this section in the, I don't know why I'm laughing, this is stupid semantics moment.
Sponsored by Evian, the most extreme way to stay hydrated.
What actually? And Valkyrie is a horrific counter because it basically becomes a -3. So, yeah, like total power output. Fine. Synergies, though. Let's talk about the fun stuff. We don't care about getting countered by our opponents. We want to play Starbrand and have fun. 0 into Starbrand. It's 413. Unreal. We love it. Sauron, obviously, you're playing it in the Sauron deck. Finally, another card to add to the Sauron deck because there's actually not that many negative ongoing effects in the game, so it's kind of cool to get another excuse to whip out the Sauron. Surtur, again, he has been recently nerfed, but I still think he's good, and Starbrand being an auto 3 costed card means that Surtur has even more opportunity. You can just fit in more 10 power cards into your game plan. I mean, hell, play a magic version of the Surtur deck and have more time to play more cards, more energy, and get that Scar down and the Surtur up. Especially Surtur, whilst he has been nerfed, he has no cap now, so that's particularly relevant to Starbrand as well, being a cheap costed card and allowing you to play more cards. Enchantress, get rid of that downside. And Scar. I'm not explaining why. Sometimes I throw my toys out of the pram in this section, and I refuse to explain why a synergy is a synergy. Let's talk about the decks, though. The first one is a budget Sauron deck, and actually I've got a couple more decks for you after this as well. We've got 4 decks this episode. This one is budget Sauron, one expensive card, which is Starbrand, of course. So we've got Zabu in here to reduce the cost of our several 4 costed cards. We've got 0, we've got Sauron, and we have got Enchantress. So we've got the trifecta of removing ongoing abilities. Then we've got some unusual stuff. Yeah, sure, stick the armor in here if you really want to, guys. But I'm not sure. I've just never been a fan of playing armor alongside Sauron. I just think that feels too bad to even consider. Just hope that you don't get Shang-Chi'd, and if you do, play enough stuff elsewhere that is fine. Anyway, this is the Taskmaster and Shuri version of the deck. So basically, towards the end of the game, we're playing Shuri on 4, Red Skull on 5 to get 28 power, and then copying that with Taskmaster on turn 6. Now, the really interesting and cool thing about Starbrand in this deck is that you can now have another location where you're super winning. Like, if you've got 28 power in 2 locations, you sure as hell don't care that you've given them free power in there. So just play the Starbrand on the left or whatever. Or doesn't have to be on the left. Just elsewhere. And the second deck I've got for you is New Sauron. This leans a bit more into the Scar and Surtur stuff. Not a bit more, 100% more into the Surtur and Scar stuff. We've also got some cheeky inclusions here like Sasquatch. Maybe you play your several 1-costed cards in the early stages of the game, and it allows you to play down a really early Sasquatch, get it out, and then blah blah blah. These are not hard decks to play, to be honest, guys. Don't need to analyse them too much. So this Serra Control deck, a new style of Serra Control. Like I said earlier, I could be utterly coping with this one, but it is basically a Serra Control deck with an extra thing, or an extra card you can play in here which doesn't worry about priority. This is the Green Goblin, so stick that down on the same location where you're basically playing Serra and Starbrand. And then at the end of the game you can basically have all of these options to negate and do things. So you can do the Enchantress on your own location to get rid of the -3 power. You've still got 3 energy to play with the other things, which could be as simple as a Shang-Chi. It could even be like a Grandmaster and a Rogue. There's masses of options with this deck, especially if you can get the Zabu out early as well and get your tech cards cheaper reduced, and then topped off with all of it. If you can actually swing the game with some of the cheaper tech cards, you can then do a Hit Monkey and have I don't know. This just seems really interesting to me, guys. Very, very fascinating. What do you think? Am I coping with this one? And then my last deck for you this time is Sauron Zoo. pardon? What on earth are you talking about Sauron Zoo? Now, you could easily stick like a Moon Girl in this to make it a little bit even more interesting. But we've got Sauron in here to remove the ongoing abilities of cards like Ebony Maw, Lizard, and Starbrand. Yeah, we don't... oh, and Red Skull, actually. We don't have too many that we're removing the abilities from. We could certainly add a few of those more cards in. But the curve of this deck just simply skews smaller. So we try and eke out extra value with Shanna and Baron Zemo. And then at the end of the game, we could do... like, your final turn could be something like Red Skull and Ebony Maw, and your board is already so full that you just win because you've overwhelmed them and overpowered them. Anyway, let's move on to the star ratings. Overall, I think it's 3.5 stars. Now, I've given him what I would consider a relatively low score considering the way that I've been talking about him, because he is very narrow, okay? His downside is huge, so that limits the number of decks you can play him in, because you do want to remove his abilities. That is the goal with this card. And so that means he doesn't fit in that many decks, even if we are coping and he does work in the Sarah Control stuff. So from a fun perspective, I've given 3, which is, you know, that is still, let's be clear, that is still good. I do think he'll be good levels of fun. Neutralish, maybe we should say. Because I think as fun as it will be playing a really high power card at a low cost, God, you're like damaging yourself. But then removing his abilities probably is fun. I don't know. Within the archetype, though, he's 6 stars. For Sauron, this is like the best Sauron card ever to have been added to Sauron since Sauron's release. Is he the best card in the Sauron deck? I don't know. Like, possibly. But regardless, he is like auto-including Sauron. Like, you're not playing Typhoid Mary over Starbrand ever again. And from a competitive standpoint, I have actually given 4 stars. I do actually think he'll be strong and he will contribute to your win rate nicely in those kinds of decks. So ultimately, is he a snap or pass? I don't know, guys. I'm flip-flopping on this one a bit. Yes, he's a snap because I do actually think his Spotlight Week is good, despite it being low value. I think that he is a good card / above average. I still don't think he's mind-blowing. 3.5 is not, not a massive score, so I'm kind of not sure. He's kind of a pass as well. I don't. This is snap or pass. I really need to stick to one. Okay, I'm going to say snap. He is good, but just heed my analysis. I think he's like absolutely mind-blowing. But if you like that kind of deck, then obviously get him. And also, this is all just my bloody opinion. I could certainly be wrong. Even though I was right on Agamotto and Eson. Everyone said Eson was worse than Agamotto and I said he was better. So, kind of anyway. Give him a high score. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, guys. As I said, we're going to run the road safety video now. So please enjoy this road safety video. And I'll see you next time for the next installment of Kaka Fluck.